Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we're going to be diving into the Reaper's Wager and talking about how absolutely insane it truly is. And truly, if this detachment was a woman, I would make love to it. It is that great. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One, I think that every single detachment or every single army should have a very fun but tactical play style. And I like tactical play. That's why I'm interested in the Eldar, and that's why I really love how the Eldar play on the tabletop. Now, unfortunately for the Druhkari, that's just, at least to me, I just don't find them that exciting. Yes, they reward tactical play because, they are a squishier faction, they're harder to play in general. But unfortunately, the two detachments that have come out for the Druhkari so far are boring. They're absolutely a snore. So I was really happy to see that the Reaper's Wager was the complete opposite. Not only is it very exciting, fun, and engaging to the player itself, but it's also pretty powerful, especially if you can get the detachment bonus correct. So I was really looking forward to making this video for you guys. It took me a little while because, to be honest with you, just kind of going through the rules, going through the different interactions, going through the combinations you can pull off, it took me a while to get the hang of it. And I think that a lot of players looking at this detachment might write it off right away as just not as good as Sky Splinter. But I have to tell you guys, from somebody who has played Sky Splinter and is a pretty active player, this has the potential to be much better as long as you're able to actually harness the full capabilities of the detachment. And it's much more fun than Sky Splinter, so there is that. And Sky Splinter tends to be very one-dimensional, whereas the Reaper's Wager is very diverse in what you can take. So without further ado, let us go ahead and dive into the video and talk about why this detachment is the absolute best in the game. So, first of all, we're going to be doing a quick overview of the video. We are going to be first reviewing the detachment rule enhancements and stratagems of the Reaper's Wager. We're going to be looking at the pros and cons of the detachment, the best units in the detachment and why they're the best, the playstyle of the list and its win condition, an example Reaper's Wager list that is close to optimal that I have built, and of course, when I say close to optimal, I mean it's as optimal as it can be in my eyes without play testing it extensively. And lastly, how to get the most out of the detachment rule shown on Tabletop Simulator. So the detachment rule is called Callous Competition, and there's a lot of text here, but basically what it is that at the start of your battle, Druhkari units are considered to be winning the wager. So either your Druhkari units are winning the wager or your Harlequin units are winning the wager, depending on who last killed an enemy unit. So the moment a unit destroys an enemy unit, if that unit is Harlequins, then they are currently winning the wager. If it is Druhkari, they are currently winning the wager. The other side is considered losing the wager. And when a model is losing the wager, they will get a reroll hits of 1 and reroll wounds of 1 rule. Special ability, essentially. Now, that doesn't seem like it's that good because it's only ever half of your list, right? But you're going to be able to alternate between units, and the success, or should I say the effectiveness of this detachment rule is going to be based on how well you can balance shooting your units in their order of activation. Basically, the better your skills at order of activation, the better this detachment rule is. And actually, if you, kind of use this on the battlefield and you remember to switch back and forth between your units effectively, and you remember the order of operation of shooting, this detachment rule can be much better than both Sky Splinter and obviously Real Space Raid. But truthfully, I think Real Space Raid has probably one of the worst detachment bonuses in the entire game. But yeah, obviously much better than that. But even better than Sky Splinter, getting Lance when you come out of a transport and getting Norse cover, I think this detachment rule is actually way better. So, this army, of course, hinges on the ability to take Harlequins. You do need Harlequins in this detachment to make it effective. Now, that's what kind of turns off a lot of Dark Eldar players. They're like, well, I don't want to use Harlequins. I'm just going to use Druhkari units in my army. I'm not going to worry about any Harlequins, and I'm just going to be permanently winning the wager. If I want to flip it, I'll just discard a pain token, and then, a couple of my units will get +1, or, rerolls 1s to hit, rerolls 1s to wound, and I'll call it a day. Now, normally I'd say that's fine, whatever, but you're just not getting the most out of the detachment rule, and that's what makes the faction so powerful. Also, there's a lot of Harlequin units that really do benefit very heavily from not only the detachment rule, but also from the stratagems and enhancements, which we will get into in just a second. But you do need Harlequins. I don't think you need a full 1,000 points of them. I think the sweet spot is around 500 points, personally. 500 points of Quinn seems to be where, you kind of want to be at. 400, 500 points. Maybe a little bit more, but not too much more, I think. And, you're pretty good to go on that. At least in my experience. So let me know what you guys think about that, but I think, about 500 points of Quinns is good for the Druhkari detachment, this Reaper's Wager. Alright, so let's go into the enhancements. The first enhancement is probably one of the best, Arc Raider, 15 points. It's a Harlequin or Druhkari model only. In the declared battle formation step, if the bearer starts the battle embarked within a dedicated transport, that dedicated transport has Scouts 9. That's obviously super fantastic, especially with a transport. So if it's within a Venom, within a Raider, within a Starweaver, it gets Scouts 9. This is really good for both a Troop Master and an Archon. Troop Master with Harlequins inside and Scouts being able to charge in, potentially getting sustained hits 1 with a stratagem, potentially also being able to reroll 1s to hit and wound, is absolutely insane when you consider the damage potential of the unit. So Harlequins with a Starweaver are very good, and a Troop Master. Also an Archon with some Incubi in there is an equally good prospect. I think honestly both squads have their pros and cons, and I think that Arc Raider is just an auto-include in pretty much every single Reaper Wager army. The next one is Webway Walker for 15 points. Same amount of points, kind of a weaker ability in my opinion. Harlequins are Druhkari model only. Models in the bearer's unit have Deep Strike, and then each time the bearer is set up on the battlefield using the Deep Strike, if you are losing the wager until the end of the turn, you can reroll the charge rolls made for that unit. Honestly, I think that's just okay, considering you do need a 9 most of the time to get a charge off. There's no, bonuses to charges in this detachment, so that's kind of a lame thing. And that's why I kind of just say it's not really worth it. I don't really think it's worth spending 100 points on a unit that can Deep Strike in that might not even be able to charge. That's just me. There might be a unit combination available, for example, I think it might be interesting to Deep Strike an Archon with a Court of the Archon and a Coplite Warrior squad, a big squad of them, maybe Deep Strike them all, and then, just kind of ignore the reroll charge rolls. I mean, maybe you could charge in, right, if you can, but just basically be shooting and also proccing sustained hits 1, or maybe even, lethal hits on them or something like that, but I just don't think it's that great overall, to be honest with you. Now, the next enhancement is the Reaper's Cowl. This is 25 points. Model and the bearer's unit have Stealth and Infiltrators. I really like Infiltrators, but I don't think it's as good as Scouts. It's not quite as versatile, right? If you don't get to go first, and by the way, this is not an army that has to go first like the Armored Warhost. Don't even get me started about the Armored Warhost. The more I look at that detachment, the more I just hate it. But, Stealth and Infiltrators is still pretty good. It's just, typically speaking, units are not durable enough to make great use of the stealth, unless, it's just something they already have. And the Infiltrator ability, most Dark Eldar combat units are better off in transports, in my honest opinion. Plus, this is 25 points, so it's a little bit expensive. Now, the last enhancement is also, I think, an auto-include. Because of the way the detachment works, you put it on a Druhkari model, and in your command phase, you can do one of the following for 20 points. If your Druhkari units are currently losing the wager, you can gain 1 pain token. If you do Druhkari units from your army are now winning the wager, you want to do this, I think, probably most of the time, just because you want your Harlequin units, if you do still have them on the battlefield, you want them to be able to get the bonus right away and start shooting stuff. Remember, your Harlequins are not going to be as much of your army, so typically Harlequin units in the shooting phase are going to be used to weaken enemy units for your Druhkari units to clean up. If your Druhkari units are currently winning the wager, you can discard 1 pain token. If you do, the Harlequin units from your army are now winning the wager. So this will, of course, give all of your Druhkari units rerolls once to hit and wound right off the bat. So it just really depends on what you need that turn, right? And it depends what your opponent chooses to target and stuff like that. This is a really flexible enhancement, and it allows you to have much more control over who is winning and losing the wager, which is absolutely key. Plus, being able to gain pain tokens is pretty nice. You definitely want something in your army that can do that. Okay, let's go and move on to the stratagem. So the first one is Fateful Roll. It's in your fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. You can choose 1 Druhkari or Harlequin's unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Now, this is basically Fights on Death. Now, Fights on Death is usually only on things that are super durable, like Grotesques, for example. Or we know Wraithblades have it in the Eldari army. But this doesn't actually say that it has to be on a certain type of unit. It just says any Druhkari or Harlequin's unit. And this means that if your unit is losing the wager, which it may or may not be, it just really depends what your opponent decides to attack, on a 4+ or a 3+, you get Fights on Death with your models. This is really insane with units like Incubi. This is really insane on units like Harlequin troops. This is really good on the Solitaire, which if you can get it to be a 4+, or excuse me, a 3+, if you're losing the wager, your Solitaire gets to fight on death if it gets charged. Now, the Solitaire does have fights first, but there's several instances where this can actually just be straight up, gotten around. For example, if somebody has the counter-offensive stratagem up and decides to use it, or, there's a lot of situations where your Solitaire might not actually get to attack before it dies. So this is a very situational stratagem, but it can be very good on several units that you would choose in your army. We next have Malicious Frenzy. This is my favorite damage buff, and I really hope that the Eldari Aspect Warrior Detachment gets something like this. It happens in your shooting or fight phase. 1 Druhkari or Harlequin's unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. And keep in mind, this is not Druhkari infantry. This is not Harlequin infantry. This is any Druhkari or Harlequin's unit. And you basically get lethal hits or sustained hits 1 until the end of the phase. And that's awesome. Now, not only does it work in the shooting, but it also works in the fight phase, so you can use this twice in the same turn, once in your shooting phase, and, of course, once in your fight phase if you wanted to. This is really powerful. This is super strong on things that have a lot of attacks, so things like Incubi really love lethal hits. Things like, I mentioned earlier, Harlequin troops really love lethal hits, especially with rerolls. And Haywire, you have a lot of Haywire in the Druhkari. They love sustained hits. Dark Lances love sustained hits. If you have, a couple of units of, I would even say a couple of units of Coplite Warriors, right, in Venoms, they love sustained hits. If you can get out, have sustained hits on them, your Blaster has a sustained hit, your Dark Lance has a sustained hit possibly, right, especially if you're re-rolling hits, it really starts to add up. It's really strong. Now, you can also put it on a Void Raven Bomber. I think the Void Raven is probably, it's still good. It's just really expensive. And I think, truthfully, the Void Raven has some really good matchups, and it has some really bad matchups. It doesn't like to get shot at. If you're going up against a shooting army, your Void Raven is going to have a little bit of trouble. But with Sustained Hits 1, the Void Raven could possibly come in, kill 2 things, make up its points value, and then just die afterward at least contented death, right? So I think this is a really good stratagem for several units in the army. It's just absolutely brutal on Dark Eldar units that are honestly most of the time lacking something to really hit hard against tough targets, and now we finally have that. Murderer's Circus is another one that is really good. It is only in the fight phase just after an enemy unit selected targets, but you get to choose one Druhkari or Harlequin's unit from your army, and it doesn't matter what it is. So that means it's not limited to Witch Cult, it's not limited to Homunculus Covens, it's anything, and you get a -1 to hit. This is exceptionally good with tough targets. Things like Talos, right? If something charges into a Talos, and you want to keep your Talos alive, you can subtract 1 from their hit rolls, and that could be really powerful. The next one is Shorten the Odds. It's in your movement phase just after a Druhkari or Harlequin's unit from your army has advanced. You target that unit, and until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn which it advanced. This is really insane with a lot of different units. I really like this, especially with Talos. Again, Talos, one of their biggest weaknesses is that they're kind of slow. They're only movement 7. I find myself having to advance them the first turn a lot of the time, but now with this stratagem, you can both advance them, shoot them, and charge with them, all for 1 CP. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I love being able to do this. I also think this is really good with units that are already pretty fast. Things like Scourges. If you want Scourges to get around a piece of terrain so that they can shoot something, and then of course they can still use their move, shoot, move ability afterward, that's also really powerful. Not only that, but this is really good with Quinn units too, because they have fusion pistols. They actually have things that they can shoot. So advancing with them, and then shooting their pistols up close, and then charging in afterward is exceptional. It's absolutely fantastic, and I love this stratagem. It's so powerful in this army. And honestly, I think between that and lethal hits, basically on anything that you have in your army, you have 2 of the most powerful stratagems in the game. And you can actually combine them too if you wanted to, right? There's nothing stopping you if you've saved a few CP. Now the next one is Scintillating Tempo. It's in your movement phase or charge phase just after a Druhkari or Harlequin's unit from your army is selected to make a normal, advance, or fallback move, is set up on the battlefield or declares a charge. You target that unit, and until the end of the turn, enemy units cannot use the Fire Overwatch stratagem to shoot at your unit. This is, again, one of those insane stratagems. So let me break this down for you guys. It's not just in the movement phase or in the charge phase. It's or, alright? So you can choose either one. And remember, stratagems, you can use them once per phase. So you can use this once in the movement phase and once in the charge phase if you want to, and basically deny Overwatch from 2 different units in your army. The one huge weakness of Druhkari in general is that they're super vulnerable to Overwatch. Even Sky Splinter with the Nightmare Shroud, they're still super vulnerable to Overwatch because that's only 1 unit that gets it for 25 points. This is any unit in your army that can be immune to Overwatch for the entire turn. And technically, you can use this twice. Now, you might not always want to use it twice, but you definitely can, and you just have to wait until, that phase, and you think your opponent's going to Overwatch you. So it's a really good way of preventing that. It's absolutely great. It's really good, especially in this army, when you're running things like Incubi, Harlequin troops, right? Kind of more fragile units that you really don't want to get shot with flamers. And we are seeing a little bit of a resurgence in Overwatch. So that is really, really effective. The last stratagem is Dance Macabre. This is a 2 CP phantasm, essentially. It's a Druhkari infantry or Harlequin's infantry unit that is within 9 of an enemy unit. It's not as good as Phantasm because the opponent needs to be within 9 inches, but if you're losing the wager, it can make a normal move of up to 6 instead. Now, what I do think is I do think this tells us what Phantasm is going to be in the Eldari Index. Unfortunately, I think it is going to be a 2 CP stratagem with this same thing. Now, it might not be just D6. It might, yeah, it might just be D6, right? You might not see the, within 9 of an enemy unit on it, but it's also not going to have the part where if the unit is currently losing the wager, it can make a normal move up to 6. I think Phantasm is probably going to be 2 CP, 1 Eldari infantry unit from your army that is within, excuse me, not that's within 9, but it's going to be, you can move D6, right? So basically, what it does now, D6 movement, but 2 CP. That's kind of what I think. Now, this is very situational, but it can be extremely good. And there's one more thing that you should think about, right? I'm reading this, and I'm not seeing anything that says you can't use this to get back into a transport. And I know what some of you are going to say. Well, Proxy Hammer, Phantasm has the restriction that you can't get back into a transport. So this must also have a restriction, right? Well, that's true, but I just don't see any restrictions here. Unless I'm missing something, it seems like you could just make a normal move, and guys, whenever you make a normal move, even reaction moves, if it doesn't have a restriction, you can get back into that transport. So you can actually use this ability to hop back into a Raider, to hop back into a Starweaver that you didn't hop back into, or you could just hop back into a Venom. I know Venoms and Starweavers already have that ability, but sometimes you're going to be a little bit too far away from them. This allows you to at least maybe make a move first and then hop back into it afterward. So, yeah, I think, honestly, this is fantastic. In the right circumstances. It is 2 CP, but it can literally save your unit, and it can cause a lot of problems for your opponent. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the pros and cons of this detachment. So the pros are, it's very diverse with the units that it can draw from, especially with the Harlequins. It has the tools to improve virtually every unit in the index, Quins included. And actually, some of the units that suck in the other 2 detachments, like Hellions or Grotesques, actually make sense in this detachment. They can be run in this detachment and be good. I don't know if they're, the best units you can take or the optimal units you can take, but they're certainly effective. Like Hellions with move, shoot, or I should say advance, shoot, and charge is awesome. Hellions with lethal hits is awesome, right? Grotesques with, advance, shoot, and charge are pretty good, actually. And having said that, the list has a ton of utility and damage, so the detachment's very strong in a lot of ways. Now, the cons are that it is command point intensive. Because there's so many good strats, you need to be careful about how you use your command points. Command point management is very important for this detachment. It can also be difficult to get the hang of the detachment rule despite its potential power. You really do have to focus on using order of operations very correctly and in the proper sequence, and that can be a little bit tough, especially if you don't know exactly, the average damage of the units that you have in your army. Lastly, getting the right balance of Harlequin and Druhkari units in the list can be tough. I've found just through, kind of running through a few turns, play testing it, that it looks to be around 500 points is the sweet spot, but I will say this, it could potentially be a little bit more if you just want to play it safe. I personally think that, having an extra Void Weaver in your list or having a couple of units of Sky Weavers instead of just one unit of Sky Weaver can be very beneficial. So I would say anywhere between 400 and 600 points is essentially what you're going to be looking at for the Harlequin units in this army. But again, I may be a little bit off on that, and it may work a little bit differently, just depending on your playstyle and general, sense of balance, I should say. Okay, so what are the best units in the detachment, and why are they the best? So here's the truth of it. There's a lot of good units in this detachment, but honestly, all of them are good. There's only like 1 or 2 that I can think of that suck. One of them being the unfortunately, the Shadow Seer, because it just has a redundant ability in this detachment. But you could honestly almost use anything with success in this detachment. It improves most of the units. But here are some of the units that I think are especially good. The first unit is the Talos. I think everybody should stick 2 units of Talos in this detachment right away. There's a couple of different reasons for this. First of all, this detachment is kind of squishy if you play it just pure Quins and pure Druhkari units, If you play with a lot of Cabalites, a lot of Witches, a lot of Incubi, it's a little bit fragile, and you don't really have anything to stop shooting. You don't have a -1 to hit against shooting. You don't have a lot of that kind of, durability, I should say. And you certainly don't have a 4+ invul, Night Shield or anything like that the other detachments, Druhkari detachments get. You don't have a strike and fade. So you need some durability in here, and I think the Talos really do benefit this detachment just in a very basic way. But 3 of the stratagems really also benefit the Talos, and that is the advance, shoot, and charge. Again, Talos are very slow. They love being able to advance, shoot, and charge. Also, Talos are a little bit fragile in combat against certain types of units, so a -1 to hit in combat is very good as well. And lastly, people may not think about this, but lethal hits in combat or sustained hits 1 with shooting is also very effective. Sustained hits 1 on essentially twin-linked Haywire Blasters, so you can reroll all your hits, reroll all your wounds, can do devastating damage to vehicles. But it's even really good in combat, right? Like Strength 8, Damage 3, AP -2, which goes to AP -3 because Power from Pain, right? You can actually do some serious damage against Terminators or even vehicles with lethal hits. It's a really good stratagem for these guys as well. Scourges. Oh, and I should also say this about Talos. They are detachment bonus independent. So they are already getting full rerolls to hit with a pain token, full rerolls to wound on their shooting attacks because they already have twin-linked on all of their weapons, right? So they have twin-linked Haywire Blasters and they have twin-linked Liquefier guns. They don't really care too much about the detachment. Only in combat do they really care. And in combat, typically they're going to be rerolling all their hits as well. So they're only rerolling 1s to wound. They're more detachment bonus independent. Now, this is good for a number of reasons. Basically, this detachment is really focused on getting the most out of the detachment rule, the rerolls 1s to hit and 1s to wound from losing the wager. But because Talos don't really care about it, you can shoot them or, kind of engage them in several different ways and basically use them to flip the wager at the end of the unit's activation. Or you can kind of use them as a stopgap between winning the wager and losing the wager from the Druhkari side to the Harlequin side, if that makes sense, right? So let me give you a good example of this, and I will go further into this in the Tabletop Simulator example, but let's say that you start off by shooting all your Harlequin units, and the last Harlequin unit to kind of shoot ends up killing an enemy unit, and then it switches to the Druhkari side. So the Druhkari are now losing the wager, right? So now the Talos can go first and weaken another enemy unit. They can be used to kind of weaken other enemy units so that the Druhkari units that come after them can finish them off and flip the wager back to the Quins, who in the charge phase or in the fight phase can now benefit from losing the wager. So they can be used in that way, or they can be used at the very end of the turn to flip, the wager back. Okay, so let's go from the beginning. Harlequins start off by losing the wager. They kill a unit. They're winning the wager. Druhkari units start shooting. You kill a unit. Now, of course, the Druhkari are going to be winning the wager after that. And then, lastly, before the charge phase, if you really need something to kind of die so you can flip the script back, you can use the Talos to do that. Even if they're, even if they're the last units to go. And again, I know it's just kind of weird to say it without showing you guys, so I'll show you guys more in the Tabletop Simulator example. But anyway, yeah, they're detachment bonus independent. They don't really need the detachment bonus to be good. Okay, moving on to Scourges. Scourges really love sustained hits with full rerolls to hit, with of course a pain token, and rerolls 1s to wound when losing the wager. They really love that. So first of all, Bright Lances, or Dark Lances I should say, they wound very well. Even Haywires, they're wounding vehicles on 4s, but typically speaking, maybe you'll get like 1 or 2 1s, and they'll be able to reroll those into wounds, which means more dev wounds. Sustained hits is very easy when you're rolling 8 dice at an enemy unit, and being able to reroll all of them. So normally they hit on 4s, right? So you're bound to get some misses, and you can re-roll those into potential 6s. I think the average is you're going to get a couple 6s in there, which does help with your math and being able to do more damage against vehicles. But also, I mean, the Dark Lances with sustained hits is good too. It's just not as good, but it's still pretty good. Incubi with lethal hits or sustained hits, plus the rerolls to hit and 1s to wound, is really insane as well, and they can absolutely demolish hard targets. Lethal hits on Incubi, with an Archon joining them, who's giving them rerolls to hit, rerolls to wound, is pretty insane. And remember, they are getting AP -3 when they're affected from Power from Pain. Now, something some of you might not think about, but witches are also really good in this detachment, because if they have a succubus, they can get both lethal hits from the stratagem and sustained hits from the witch succubus. They're rerolling all their hits, which means that you can essentially, with hitting on 3s, fish for 6s. So you're getting lethal and sustained hits. And what do witches have problems with? Well, witches have problems getting through toughness of other units. They're only strength 3. So having lethal and sustained hits is really insane. And they're also getting rerolls 1s to wound when losing the wager. So to me, that's just a win-win-win. That's a triple win. And witches are very cheap as well, right? Like a succubus is 45 points. A unit of 10 witches is only 90 points. So you add that together, and you're getting a fairly cheap package that can deal a lot of damage to, honestly, heavy targets, right? Because not only are they getting sustained hits 1, but they're also getting AP -2 because they're empowered through Power Through Pain. So they're really hard hitting. The Void Raven Bomber, as I said before, becomes an absolute terror with sustained hits on Void Lances and missiles. Just does a super amount of damage. With advanced shoot and charge, grotesques can be pretty nasty. Normally we think grotesques are kind of, trash, but, with advanced shoot and charge, they're really good. Remember, all of them do have liquefier guns and combat weapons that are pretty strong. Skyweavers with Haywire and Zephyrglaives love being able to advance shoot and charge, and also potentially have sustained hits and rerolls 1s to hit and wound with Haywire, which is really insane with their ballistic skill 3+. Voidweavers can also generate pain tokens via Battle Shock and have extremely long threat range with advanced shoot and charge, and can potentially even tank shock afterward, which is also insane. Hellions actually look pretty good with this. I kind of spoke about Hellions a little earlier, but they look good with advanced shoot and charge and a potential lethal / sustained hits in combat. And I believe Hellions also can just fall back and charge for free, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's their kind of special ability. So yeah, even Hellions look pretty good in this detachment. And lastly, as far as Harlequin characters, Death Jesters and Solitaires are both lone ops who love being able to reroll 1s to hit and wound, because normally they hit on 2s, and against a lot of targets are wounding on 3s. So that kind of means that they're rerolling most of their misses, and they really love sustained or lethal hits as well. So a Death Jester, might not be the best target for sustained or lethal hits, but it's still pretty good. However, I think a Solitaire with the rerolls and sustained 1 or lethal hits is absolutely deadly. So basically guarantees that a Solitaire can go in there and just absolutely murder a character. And probably the unit that the character is joined to as well. Okay, so what is the playstyle of the list and its win condition? So this army is all about combos, being able to keep the wager bonuses alive in both the shooting and fight phases each turn, outperforming your opponent in value. So your units can do a lot more damage throughout the game, which means they can trade up or way more, efficiently than they would be able to normally. And this is going to give your opponent a lot of trouble. You also have the ability to be very aggressive in this list and basically attack your enemy from positions that they would not expect. You have a very big threat range with a lot of your units because of the advanced shoot and charge stratagem. However, to achieve this, it does require pretty on-point order of activation and keen knowledge of the damage capabilities of each unit in your army. This can be a little bit dicey, because if you roll really hot on something, you can accidentally flip the wager over. But I wouldn't think that's that big of a deal, to be honest with you, because if you do flip it over, then you can just go to the other side of it. Whatever is essentially getting the bonus is what you want to be shooting next. So if you accidentally flip the wager a little bit too early, then just start shooting units on the other side of the battlefield at other targets, and you should be okay. Right? You want to basically eliminate everything that your opponent gives you to eliminate, and then you want to be able to charge something down the field in the charge phase to benefit from the, opposite end. So, how does this essentially work? Well, ideally what you want to do in the very beginning of the turn when you start shooting is you want to weaken several enemy units in the shooting phase, then destroy one enemy unit to flip the wager, after all other units from the losing side of your wager have already shot. So you don't want to flip it too early. You want to be able to make sure that all the units that are shooting are able to do so without flipping the wager. And you want to flip the wager at the very end of that side shooting. So if your Dark Eldar force is winning the wager at first, you want all of your Harlequins to shoot first, weaken a bunch of enemy units, and then flip the wager back to the Druhkari. Then you want to do the same thing with the units from the other side of the wager as much as possible. You're not going to be able to fully do it all the time, but you want to be able to maximize its effect as much as possible. And lastly, you want to shoot the units, when you eventually do flip the wager with the other side of your army, you want to start shooting with the units that are wager independent. So remember I talked about the Talos being wager independent, Kabbalite warriors with the Archon are also wager independent because they're getting full rerolls to hit and wound anyway. And then, after that, you want to set up, in the fight phase, a fight with the losing side of the wager first. So, ideally, you want to be able to charge a Harlequin unit and a Druhkari unit in the same phase. That's not always going to happen, but if you can only charge one unit in, make sure you charge a unit that is losing the wager first, so that you can destroy an enemy unit with those rerolls to hit and rerolls to wound and get the bonus. Then you will flip to the other side of the wager from the next turn, and then of course you can use the enhancement to kind of use or flip it to whatever side you need to on your own turn, for either a pain token or a discard of a pain token, essentially. Okay, so this is the list that I have come up with, and I think it's pretty effective. You'll see it in the tabletop simulator example that I show you guys, and basically this is what it consists of. As for characters, we have quite a few. We do have the Archon with the Blast Pistol and Arc Raider. He is the Warlord. He's going to cost 100 points. We are going to probably place him with a basic unit of Kabbalite warriors. Now, that might seem kind of insane because it's like, oh, well, Proxy Hammer, didn't you say that we want Incubi, going up the field, or, Harlequin Troop going up the field? And that is true. I think those are powerful options as well. But the reason why I chose Arc Raider in this list is because I want to sticky objectives. Now, the reason why I want to sticky objectives with that scout move is because I want my opponent to have to move onto objectives in my line of fire to capture the objectives, right? Like, if he or she kills all of the units on the objective, they're still going to have to move units out in the open. And that's the goal, because I'm trying to, with this list, outperform his shooting, or her shooting. Then we have an Archon with a Blast Pistol and Conductor of Torment. This is going to be an Archon that is probably going to stay more, kind of farther back from the battlefield. Going to try to, pop out and shoot every once in a while with Fire and Deck with the Cobalite Warriors, but not much more, because we want to keep this one alive so that we can keep flipping, the wager. We also have Drazar in this list. By the way, Drazar is a beast in this army. Reason being is because you get full rerolls to hit, but you also get rerolls of 1 to wound when you're losing the wager. And he has dev wounds on, his single-bladed strike. He's very good. Plus, he gives you extra command points for killing characters. Or not command points, excuse me. Pain tokens, which is good in this list as well. And with Incubi, he gives them +1 to wound. So when they charge in, they're getting reroll hits with possibly lethal hits or sustained hits because of the the stratagem. They're getting +1 to wound. They're getting rerolls 1s to wound. And they're just devastating pretty much anything they hit. And the good thing about Drazar is, unlike the Archon, Drazar's actually good against stuff that's not infantry. So if we did want to throw him into a vehicle, or throw him into something like Tau battlesuits who are not infantry, he can actually do some good damage. And weirdly enough, Drazar is the same amount of points as an Archon now. So what do you know? There you go, right? Drazar is actually much tougher as well. So we have Drazar in there. We have a Solitaire, of course. We have a Death Jester as well. For battle line, we have 2 units of 10 Cobalite Warriors with all the options. For other detachments, or other data sheets, we have 5 Scourges with 4 Dark Lances and a Blast Pistol. And again, I could have gone for Haywire, but I have so much Haywire in this list already. I wanted something that I could realistically kill monsters with. And, 5 Scourges is something that's going to be, kind of able to do some pretty good damage against monsters. We do have, some really good demon detachments that have come out recently, so we're going to need something that can deal with those at range. We have 5 Incubi. Of course, they're going to go into a Venom with Drazar. We have 2 Chronos, which Chronos, I love the little cronies. They're really good. They're just 50 points. They're pretty tough for what they are. They can score objectives for you, things like Sabotage pretty easily. And, they help you regenerate pain tokens, so why not? We have 2 units of 2 Talos with the Talos Gauntlet, Twin Liquefier Gun, and Twin Haywire Blaster. Everything is rerolling hits and wounds with these guys at range. And of course, we can always spend a pain token in combat to, reroll all hits with them as well, give them lethal hits if they want. But the cool thing about Talos is that once they kill an enemy unit, they are fully empowered for the rest of the game, which means they reroll advance rolls, they reroll charge rolls, they reroll hits in both shooting and the fight phase. They're just absolutely amazing when they're fully empowered. We have 2 Skyweavers with Zephyr Glaives and Haywire Blasters, and again, Zephyr Glaives because this list does want to actually engage enemies in combat. The Skyweavers, they're not super powerful in combat, but again, in this detachment, if you're losing the wager, rerolling 1s to hit, rerolling 1s to wound, possibly with sustained hits or lethal hits in combat. Again, not the best thing with these guys, but certainly not bad. We have 2 units of 5 Mandrakes for infiltration, objectives, and screening. We have a Void Weaver with a prismatic cannon, and remember the Void Weaver comes with 2 shuriken cannons as well, and it causes battle shock, so potentially giving us more pain tokens. For dedicated transports, we have 3 Venoms, 2 Venoms filled with Cobalite Warriors, typically, with the Blaster, Darkland Shredder, and Splinter Cannons. And then we have a Raider. Now, I put a Raider in this list, and this is kind of where I'm not so sure about it. I'll be honest. I think if I could cut something out of the list, it would be this Raider, and I'd probably just put a few more Harlequin units in there. Maybe I'd throw a troop in the list, or maybe I'd throw like a solo. Geez, I think maybe just another Death Jester, perhaps. Because we're a little bit low on points. We're at 1990. But I decided to put a Raider in this list because the leftover warriors from the Cobalite squads, the 10 Cobalite warriors with splinter rifles, I wanted to maybe put them in the Raider and see if we could pull some shenanigans with a auto 6-inch advance shoot and charge stratagem. So just like launch them down the field block something off, block off a charge lane or something like that, and then shoot a bunch of splinter rifles into the enemy with lethal hits. I thought that would be kind of a cool combo to try out, but it's a little bit expensive in terms of CP, so I don't know how that would work out, but it's kind of funny, so I just decided to put it in there for fun purposes. Alright everybody, so this is going to be our army for the Reaper's Wager, and just like I described in the list building section, we have a lot of elements of this army that are working, in synergies with each other, and to get the most out of this detachment, you have to maximize the detachment bonus. That is, whoever is losing the wager is going to get rerolls 1s to hit, and rerolls 1s to wound. So when building an army like this, you do need units in your force that are not totally reliant on this ability. Now there's a couple of different units who don't necessarily need to be always losing the wager. And they are, of course, the Talos, which have twin linked, and, of course, as we know, a pain token allows them to reroll hit rolls. So they're already rerolling all their hits, rerolling all their wounds basically all the time. We don't need to worry about that. The only time they're not rerolling wounds is in combat, because they don't have twin linked in close combat with their, Talos gauntlets. Other than that, most of our army would love to have rerolls, right? But we have 2 units of Talos, so they're kind of more independent. We have Mandrakes as well, who would, they would like it if they could reroll 1s hit wound, but they don't necessarily need to. They're more of an action kind of monkey unit, so they don't really need that. And the goal of this, basically, detachment is, in the first couple turns at least, is to kill a unit with your Jester, your Death Jester, your Void Weaver, basically your Harlequin units want to draw first blood, so that you can then switch back to the Druhkari losing the wager, and then once the Druhkari start losing the wager, they start getting the rerolls. So let me go ahead and run you through how that would work and how you should actually, put your attacks in, or, how you should organize your attacks. So here we have a second turn scenario. Imperial Guard player goes first. They move all their units up to these objectives. They want to dominate the battlefield from you right off the bat. Now, would an Imperial Guard player actually, position their models like this exactly? I don't know, but for the sake of this example, this is what it's going to be. So, turn 1, we move up all of our units. We move our Skyweavers up. We move our Talos up as much as we can. We move our Raider into position, which has, Copperlight Warriors in it. We have a Venom here with more Capelite Warriors. We've split it, so we have, more Capelites, or excuse me, this one has actually the Incubi in it, but anyway, that's just staging for next turn. We have this Venom right here, Capelites pouring out. Now you might wonder, well, why did you pour out all these units, right? Like, why did you disembark them? And it's simply to get the bonus from the Archon, because when the Archon is out and you empower the unit, you get to reroll all wounds. So again, we're kind of making it so that some of our units don't have to fully rely on the detachment bonus when they're on the battlefield, right? Okay, so how are we going to play this and pull this off? So, assuming we win second and we haven't killed anything yet, the Druhkari are winning the wager, which means the Harlequin units should be shooting first and killing first. But we don't want to necessarily kill anything until the Harlequins are fully done shooting, and at the last moment, our Harlequins should secure a kill. So here is what we're going to do in this scenario. We are going to start off with a unit that, believe it or not, has actually not done anything, not done anything, but doesn't get any bonus from the detachment ability, which is Talos, because remember what I said earlier, they already reroll to hit, they already reroll to wound. So the first thing we're going to do, we see these Catachans here who have moved bravely onto the objective. Maybe they're scoring, extend enemy battle lines or something like that. We're going to go ahead and target them with the Talos. So we're going to go ahead and put some Flamers into them and put our Haywire Blasters over into this tank right here, which we can now see, right? So we're going to split fire a little bit. We're going to give them a pain token so they can reroll hits. Now, I guarantee you the first thing your opponent's going to do is they're going to say, I'm going to use smoke. They're going to pop smoke, make our Talos hit on 5s. So I have 4 dice counted right here. We're going to go ahead and roll them, see what happens. 5's the hit, rerolling hits. And again, you might not get that many hits out of this. Okay, so we get 2 hits, which is average for a reroll. And we're going to need 4's to wound. The Imperial Guard player can't do anything against that. So we're going to go and roll these. Now, here's the interesting thing. These are twin linked, right? So again, we don't need the detachment bonus for this. So we're going to go and re-roll these. And we get both of them. Okay, that was good. I was expecting 1, but we got both. So this takes 6 damage. They're probably not going to choose the blanket damage now. So they're just going to take 6 right away. Now that we've shot these with these Talos, right? So that is just putting some damage here. We're going to flame these guys, and this is kind of the important part. So here we go. We're going to go and shoot our flamers. We're going to get 2d6 attacks with them. 4, which is not good, but it's not like terrible either. So we're going to get 4 dice here. We're going to, again, remember it's twin linked, so we're going to re-roll our wounds. And we get 4. So these actually, for some reason, liquefier guns don't ignore cover. So our opponent's going to get a 5-up armor save because it's AP -1. So we're just going to roll our dice, and 2 Catachans die, which is fine. We're going to kill off 2 Catachans, and I'm just going to show you guys basically how this would work, because we do want to end up killing a unit with our Harlequins, and of course these guys are the easiest kill, so we're going to prioritize that so that we can then flip the script and start winning, or excuse me, losing with the Druhkari, right? Okay, so we've shot them. Next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to open fire with another Harlequin unit that is not going to kill something, because remember, we want to keep the wager going. So we're going to shoot with these Skyweavers right here, and they've moved up here, and they're going to go ahead and draw a line of sight. Now, they can't see this Rogel Dorn, so they're going to just shoot at this one. Some of you might be noticing, well, Proxy Hammer, you can't, you know, you can shoot them, but can't they overwatch against you? Yeah, I mean, they could overwatch us, right? That is an issue. But we do have a cool stratagem in this enhancement that basically prevents them from overwatching you. So we're going to use that on our Skyweavers if we need to, right? Our opponent knows we have that, so chances are, maybe our opponent doesn't really want to use the Overwatch against them. Maybe your opponent wants to save it, or maybe your opponent just, doesn't want to waste anything on that, knowing that they're probably not going to kill the Dorn. So, we're going to go ahead and shoot into the Dorn. We're going to get rerolls, because remember, we're losing the wager, so we're just going to roll these. We get 4 attacks. We get, 4 hits, so we didn't even need the bonus. But realistically, we're hitting on 3s, we're rerolling 1s, so maybe we would have hit all of those anyway. So now we're going to roll the wound. We need 4s to wound. And wow, we get 4 of them. We get 3 of them. Okay, so we didn't even need the wager on that one. So that's just going to be 9 damage. Now, at this point, your opponents, to be real with you guys, Rogel Dorns have an insane amount of wounds. They're probably not going to worry about blanking a damage. They're probably just going to take 9 damage here. They've already popped smoke this turn on the other one, so they're probably not going to pop, anything else maybe on that one. That would be my guess, to be real with you guys. I don't think they're going to. But they're going to take some damage. Now, we still haven't killed a unit, so we still get to keep going with those rerolls to hit. Now, what other Harlequins units do we have in the army? Well, we have the Death Jester and the Void Weaver. So the next thing we're going to shoot at is the Death Jester. We want to shoot at this infantry unit right here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to roll our dice. Now, the Death Jester gets 3 attacks, but we're going to use Sustained Hits 3. The ability Sustained Hits 3. And remember, we're rerolling 1s to hit and 1s to wound, because we are losing the wager. Okay, we get to reroll this wound roll here. And we do get a 6. So chances are you have about a 50% chance to get a 6 here. The Death Jester is not as good in this detachment, obviously, as he is in a regular Eldari army, but he is better than normal. So we're going to go ahead and add 3 attacks, and we're going to roll out our dice. Remember, we're wounding on 2s, rerolling 1s. Okay, cool. We get a dev wound, and is this wound? Cool. Okay, so we are doing 1 kill automatically because of dev wounds, and our Catachan friends are going to have to take this many 5-ups. Let's see if they can do it. And they lose 4 more. So now they're getting really low in number. That should be good. Okay. Now they will take a battle shock test immediately, and that could give us a pain token technically because of the Death Jester's ability, which again feeds our army's strength, right? Power through pain. Okay, now we have shot with everything in our army that is Harlequin except for one single thing. And that is the Void Weaver. Now, we have some options here. If you're positive with your rolls, and you think that with the rerolls, you can kill 3 Catachans with the Shuriken Cannons, and then maybe you fire the Prismatic Cannons at the Scout Sentinel right here, you can certainly do so to get some extra damage. Remember, if you use the stratagem to advance and charge and shoot in the same turn, on this Void Weaver, you can definitely tie these 2 units up into combat. That might be a good idea for you to do. But you don't have to if you don't want to. If you just want to contest the objective, you can do that as well. So what I'm going to do, actually, is I don't like to take chances. That's just my thing. I don't really like it, right? If one of these guys survives, or even 2 of these guys, you roll really badly, it's not going to be great for you. But, okay, so for the sake of the example, though, we'll go and split fire, because I think mathematically that's the better choice. So 2 Shuriken Cannons at the Catachans. We can always charge the Catachans if they survive, right? So we're going to go and do 6. I wasn't going to do this, but we'll just do that. So we're going to have the Shuriken Cannons fire at them. Remember, we're re-rolling 1s to hit, 1s to wound. Okay, we got 2 1s, so that's going to... Good thing we kept up that wager, right, guys? We're going to re-roll these. And we get a 6 out of it, so we get 2 additional dice. Boom, and all of these hit. So, wounding on 2s, re-rolling 1s. Boom. Alright, so that's 8 wounds. So we are just going to pretty much annihilate these Catachans. They are going to fail epically, and they're dead. So we have killed these. Now, we did split fire, and we did put our Prism Cannon. We made a last-minute decision. We put our Prism Cannon into the center. So we're going to go ahead and shoot that. We're still getting the benefit, remember, because it's technically simultaneous attacks. So we're getting 2 shots. We get 1 miss, which we re-roll. See how useful this ability is? We get 2 hits, and we are going to be wounding on 3s. Again, 1-1. Look at that. We re-roll. Okay, so it still didn't do anything, but that's okay. 1, well, yeah, 1 essentially I think it's going to be a 6-up save for the Sentinel, or it takes 4 damage. It is going to take 4 damage, because the Scout Sentinel only has a 3-up. So, takes 4 damage, we did some damage to it, and, you know, all's well and good in the world. Feliz Navidad. Alright, so... now we have a choice. We can charge the Sentinel. Realistically, we're not going to kill it, though. Harlequin vehicles are not good in combat. They're like strength 3. It's really embarrassing. So we're not going to kill it. We've already now started to win the wager, so we're going to flip this card over right here on the left-hand side. Harlequins are now winning the wager, which means all of our Dark Eldar units are now going to start getting bonuses. And guess what is on the center of the battlefield? A huge unit of Bullgryns. Now, our Imperial Guard player is going to be continuously playing Bullgryns now that they've got nerfed. I don't know, personally, but I can tell you this can be anything, right? This could be, you know, other types of units. Let's just put it that way. This could be Terminators. This could be anything being put on an objective in the center. Maybe they want to capture it for a secondary objective, for example, right? Like Area Denial. Maybe they're putting them on there for Cleanse. You know, you just don't know, right? So anyway, we're going to start shooting. We've shot with all of our Harlequin units, so we don't have to do anything there. Let's start shooting with our Dark Eldar units. And again, the first thing we want to do is make sure we shoot things that don't immediately kill our target. So the first thing we're going to go and shoot is the Venom here and these guys over here, the Coblite Warriors. So the Coblite Warrior units are going to be fed with pain tokens because of the Archon. Now, we do have enough pain tokens for this. Remember, we just killed a unit over here. We potentially caused the battle shock, right? We're also just basically starting out with 3 because that's the Dark Eldar's ability. So we have more than enough pain tokens here, and we've used a couple of our pain tokens on, we used one on the Talos over here, but we still have plenty left. So we're going to throw some pain tokens out. We're going to throw a pain token out on this Coblite Warrior Squad and this Coblite Warrior Squad. So, and again, by the way, just to let you guys know, if you're playing Dark Eldar and you start your shooting phase, you have to declare your pain tokens before you do anything else. So we're going to declare them on these units because Dark Eldar, with Archons attached, if you spend a pain token, you not only get rerolls to hit, but you also get rerolls to wound. Right? So we're just going to shoot those first. Now, normally, if we had other targets, we may shoot these guys last because they don't need the wager to be winning, but we're just going to shoot them first because it doesn't matter in this case. So we get a... Let's do it like this. Red will be the Brightlands. Blue will be the Blaster. Black will be the... I guess we'll call it the Shredder. And the green will be the Cannon. Alright, the Splinter Cannon. Okay, so let's just roll the Blaster first, or Shredder first, see how many shots it gets. It gets 6 shots, that's crazy. Okay, so we're going to go 5, 6. Okay, you know what? Sorry if it annoys some of you guys. We're just going to do this one at a time. So we got 6 shots with the Blaster. We're going to just roll that first. And we're going to need, believe it or not, we're going to need some big numbers on this because Ogrins are toughness 6. So we're going to need 4s. Now, we do get a reroll wounds, though, right? We get 5 of those bad boys in there. So our Ogrins are going to go ahead and take their, 3-up saves, which they do have because they're Bullgrins. Roller saves, and they get 1 wound out of it. Which, still good. Still good. I don't mind that at all. So we're going to do 1 wound to a Bullgrin. We'll just have to remember that. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the other weapons in the unit. Let's go ahead and just get rid of the Darklance. We'll do that next. I know I said the green was something else, but let's just do Darklance. Hits. Wounds. And do they make an invul save? No, they don't. So they will be taking probably enough to kill them. Yes. Boom. So that's 1 Ogrin down. So the one that took the wound will die. So we're just going to remove that guy. We're going to do a Blaster. I'll say it's red. It misses, but remember, we're rerolling hits. So it hits. Does it wound? Yes. Do they make an invul save? No. So do we kill? Yes. So we kill another one with the Blaster. And as you guys can see, the Bullgrins are tough, but if your opponent can't make 4-ups, they're not that tough against Dark Eldar, especially when you're firing all this stuff into them. Okay, so we're going to get 3 attacks from the Splinter Cannon now. So we're going to go ahead and roll those. Wow. Okay, Splinter Cannon. Sweet. So we get 2 more blue dice for that. And we're wounding on 3s, and we're rerolling all wounds because of the Archon's ability. So we're going to be doing this much, so 4, and they're going to roll, they're out in the open, so they're not getting cover, so 4-up saves. And 2 miss, so that's going to be 1 more big boy down. Okay, so that's the first unit. We fired all the special weapons, so we don't really need to worry about the, Archon's Blast Pistol, or, sorry, Subrite's Blast Pistol, or the Archon's Blast Pistol, because they're not in range. We're going to go ahead and move on to the... Well, seeing as we almost killed him, we half-shot him with the first unit, let's just fire the Venom, because we know we can't kill it with just the Venom, right? So we want to get all the bonuses that we can get. So Venom's going next. We're not going to empower it, and that's just simply because we want to get our wager, right? We want to get our wager bonus, and we don't really need to do it. So we're going to roll our dice. Well, this ended up being great because we're going to reroll our 1s because they are currently losing. We're going to add 1 because the sustained hits 1. 3s to wound. We reroll this wound and see how useful the wager is. Okay, it doesn't do... As I say that, it doesn't do anything. Okay, so this many saves. So they failed 2, so that means another Ogryn dead. There we go. Alright. So, we're going to move on to this Venom over here next, who is also going to shoot them, and we're going to, again, we're just going to shoot them with regular shots because we have the wager up. We don't need to use a pain token. We're going to re-roll this one. We're going to miss twice, but we're also going to get 2 sustained. So we're going to leave this in. We're going to roll our dice again. We need 3s, but we're re-rolling 1s. Okay, well, 4 saves for the Ogrins. And again, I know we're failing these rerolls, but the fact we're getting rerolls at all is still really good with stuff that would normally not get rerolls. So they're going to roll their dice. They're going to fail 2, so that's another Ogryn down. Okay, now we have 1 Ogryn left. We don't want to kill it yet, guys, because we want to make sure that whatever we have that gets a bonus is going to be able to keep the bonus. Okay, now in this scenario, what's realistically going to get a bonus? Maybe these Talos, right, if we fire them at this Rogel Dorn back here, but remember, Talos are independent, they don't need that. The Venoms we've already shot, the Kabalites aren't going to really benefit. The only thing that can really benefit in my eyes right now is this Raider, who can only really shoot at this Bulgrim unit, so that's not really a big deal. But if there was something else we could shoot at, what we would do is we'd fire this off first before firing this last unit of Coblite Warriors. Okay, so seeing as we don't have any good targets, but, you know, just because it's generally good practice to do so, we'll go ahead and fire this Raider and everything at the Bulgrim right here. Okay. Because we're going to still benefit from our wager, right? Our wager. So, we have 10 Coblite Warriors in there, and basically just the leftover units from the 2 units in the Venoms, so that's going to be just 20 Splinter Rifles. Roll all of our dice. We're re-rolling 1s. And again, this is firing deck, by the way, so you still get the wager benefit from firing deck, just to let you guys know. So we still miss. No big deal. We're going to get rid of those. Okay, hold on. I messed up and right-clicked instead of left-clicked. That's nice. Alright, so we hit on 3s here. Wounding on 3s. Re-rolling these, anything that's a 1. So we're going to re-roll this one. Get the wound. We're going to delete that. And this many saves for our Ogryn buddies. It's going to be on a 3-up because, you know, that's where they're at. 3-up. Boom. And looks like the last Ogryn's dead. So, last Ogryn's going to die. We rolled a little bit better, and they rolled a little bit worse than usual. So, this last unit that we had as overkill insurance is not going to be able to target the Bulgrins. Okay, so moving on. Now the Harlequins are once again winning the wager. We're going to flip that. Or Druhkari are winning the wager, excuse me, not Harlequins. So now we don't get any rerolls, but we really don't need them because there's no more units left, right? So we're going to just shoot these Talos with our Haywire cannons at this Rogel Dorn back here. And it really doesn't matter what happens to it because the turn's going to flip anyway, right? So we get 2. They can't pop smoke twice, so we're going to get 1 hit. Well, 2 hits, sorry, because pop smoke is not here. We're going to re-roll these. We're going to get 3 hits, and let's see how many wounds we get. 1 so far, and do we also get... No, okay, just 1. So it just takes 3 more damage. I think it's at 12 damage right now. So we've kind of done some damage to the Rogel Dorns. They are still very, very capable, even with the wounds that we've dealt. So what we're going to do, we're just going to use the ability of the Venom to pop back in, and just to give our opponent some, extra stuff to worry about, we're probably just going to charge the Void Weaver into one of these units here. I would say the Chimera, because it's worse in combat. We're going to take this objective, at least for now. and we're also going to make it harder for our opponent to deal with that Void Weaver in combat. Void Weavers, by the way, do have the smoke ability, so they will be able to pop smoke if they want to. And that's really it. That's all we got for this turn. And, you know, we've killed a lot. We've cleared their center objective. We've killed a squad of Catachans, right? So this is kind of how you have to play this list. And we've done some good damage to the Rogaldorns. Now, next turn, after we, of course, pull our Cabalites back into the Venoms, of course, these Rogaldorns can come out, and they can come out angry and do a lot of damage, right? I would even go so far as to say that the Rogaldorns might kill everything on this objective. The Chronos is safe, but they might just kill these Taloses. They might just also kill these Skyweavers. Really depends on what the rolls look like. But in any case, Rogaldorns are really expensive, and yeah, I mean, there is a lot of value in this, don't get me wrong. This is like, you know, these are a lot of points here. But we've also put 12 wounds on it, so it's going to be easier to kill with our Scourges that are going to come out a little later. We also have this Rogaldorn right here that can come out and possibly kill these Talos here. But that's kind of it, right? Other than that, I don't see them really killing anything else. We have these pretty covered. So once these Rogaldorns come out to play out here, we can then, of course, you know, pump more firepower into them with our various units. We have tons of Coplite Warriors. We also have things in reserve, right? We have our unit of Incubi, which can get out of the transport, move, advance, and charge at the Rogaldorn with rerolls to wound. That is really good, especially if we throw lethal hits on it, right? With Drazar, who has +1 to wound. You guys start to, you know, kind of get me here. This army is very lethal, and you have stratagems that can both protect you against Overwatch and allow you to advance, shoot, and charge. It's very strong. And as long as you're able to kind of keep up the wager and keep rerolling ones to hit and wound, it's going to be really effective. Oh, and we also have Scourges in reserve. You know, I didn't put them on the board, but we could also have had those out there benefiting from the wager as well. So there is that. So yeah, overall, I think the Reaper's Wagers are really strong detachment. I'm not the best Dark Eldar player out there either. I'm sure there's better Dark Eldar players who will be able to master this much better. But yeah, there you go. That's kind of a quick introduction on how to kind of order your units a little bit. And it's going to differ from turn to turn. But basically, essentially what you want to do is whatever army or whatever side of your army is winning the wager, you want to go ahead and try to, you know, not use until they are losing the wager. That's the key. If they're losing the wager, you want to shoot with them, you want to charge with them and stuff like that. If they're not, you want to make sure that other units from the other side of the army are dealing damage, killing units so that you can flip back and forth. It is a little bit dice dependent, but if you set it up right, and if you have enough units in your army that don't need the benefit of the detachment bonus, then you can set it up in a way where it doesn't matter, right? That's why I really think Archons and units of Coplite Warriors like this, where you can reroll hits and wounds, are really powerful. Talos are really powerful. And, you know, of course, the Death Jester is pretty good, and it's also a lone op. As you can tell, we have this backline screened for, you know, 6-inch deep strike and stuff like this, and the Death Jester just being able to kind of shoot at stuff, deal some precision, deal some mortal wounds every once in a while is really good. I think he's worth 90 points, honestly, and I know it's not, you know, he's not as good as the Fate Dice one that the Eldari get, but he's still pretty decent over the course of 5 turns. We have a Solitaire back here, and by the way, the Solitaire is kind of funny, because we could have moved it up and probably charged a Rogaldorn, and if we had the CP, if we didn't want to use CP on something else, we could move this up, charge in, put lethal hits on the Solitaire. So let me just show you guys this, because this is kind of cool, right? So the Solitaire can do this to a tank. We get 12 attacks with a Blitz, and we're hitting on 2s. And we're going to throw the stratagem on him that gives him lethal hits. So check this out. Alright, so we're going to reroll these, and of course I roll no 6s at all. Let's reroll that. I just want to show you guys, okay? Okay, that's a little better. So we re-roll this one. Still not average, but whatever. Boom. Okay, perfect. So we get 2 6s here, which is totally average. We're hitting all of our dice. So we're getting 2 lethals right off the bat. So we're going to put these aside. We get 2 lethal hits. Now we roll to wound. Now here's the thing. We're in the Reaper's Wager. So if you pull it off correctly and you end with your Druhkari units winning the wager again, your Harlequin units are now going to be losing the wager, so they're going to be rerolling 1s to hit, like I just did, and 1s to wound. So, I'm wounding on 6s against Sirocco Dorn, which isn't great, but I'm rerolling 1s. So, it's not that bad. So we get 1. Okay. Okay, that was worse than I thought, actually. So I guess I'll keep this in the video just because it's the folly of, the folly of Proxy Hammer here. So we get 3 at -2. That's not terrible, right? That's might be a few. Yeah, that's a few more wounds. I did 6 more wounds to the Rogel Dorn, which is really, actually, I think it might kill it. No, it wouldn't kill this one, but it would kill this one, right? If we did 6 more wounds to it. Not bad. Not bad, honestly. So yeah, that's okay. Obviously, it's not as good as I was originally envisioning, but against, like, the Rogel Dorn's probably a bad example because it's really tough, but something like, a Predator or something like that you're wounding on 5s with lethals, you can definitely finish something like that off with something like a Solitaire. And then, of course, it's stuck in combat and needs to fall back. If you don't have a fall back and shoot stratagem, then you're out of luck, right? So there is kind of some stuff that you can do with the Solitaire and make it worth its points because it's such a fast unit, stuff like that. So yeah, honestly, this is my opinion about the Reaper's Wager. I think it is more powerful than Sky Splinter. Sky Splinter is good, but with all the nerfs to Incubi and all the nerfs to Archons and stuff, I just think Archons are probably just better off using other detachments. Like, I think having an Archon or Archon or 2 in the Reaper's Wager is the best thing. I have a lot of Coplight Warriors in this list, but you could easily have a list with just 5 Coplight Warriors with an Archon and be just as good. You give them the Arc Raider enhancement. You can, sticky 2 objectives. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do. Alright, so anyway, that's my little example about how to kind of play the Reaper's Wager and run through your turns with it. Hope you kind of enjoyed it and it kind of taught you a little something maybe, and we will be right back to the video. Alright, so in conclusion, the Reaper's Wager, in my opinion, is one of the best detachments of the entire Grommas lineup. Not only is it extremely tactical and fun, but it is also very powerful when used correctly. And truly, I don't think that we can really ask for more than that, right? A fun, super powerful, when used correctly, of course, and also tactical detachment that makes units that normally suck really good. Like, honestly, if you guys love Hellions, use Hellions in this detachment. It is the best detachment for Hellions. It is the best detachment for Grotesques. It honestly is. I mean, any detachment that can make Grotesques good without, being a absolute Chad at the game. I mean, I know a few competitive, Dark Eldar players have made lists work with Grotesques. I do think Grotesques can be good in the hands of a very skilled player, but in general, they, just based on the stats and based on the points, they're nowhere near where they should be. And that's just my honest, unadulterated opinion. But in this detachment, I would really consider using them because, advanced shoot and charge is really good. And then, of course, -1 to hit in combat's good. But also, they have base fight on death. So, yeah, I don't know. They can be really good in this detachment. And then Hellions can also be really good. Because, Hellions have a little trouble because they have trouble moving around terrain. But with advance shoot and charge, they have less of a problem with that because the advance roll is giving them enough movement to move past terrain. So, yeah, I think this detachment's awesome. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if this detachment was a woman, I'd be making love to it, honestly, every single night. It is amazing. It's an absolutely amazing detachment. I really like it, and it's really kind of inspired me to get more into the Dark Eldar. And I know that the Eldari Codex is coming up, so I'm going to wait a little bit off it. But if the Eldari Codex, I'm not going to put bad juju out there, but if the Eldari Codex comes out and they kind of just give us detachments like the Armored Warhost, where it's kind of bland, kind of boring. I mean, there's a lot of different play styles, but each detachment's like really like just very bland. I don't think that's going to happen. Knock on wood, right? I don't think that's going to happen, but in a weird universe in which GW decides we hate the Eldar actually, and even though we gave them a bunch of new models, we're not going to give them cool new rules. I think this is honestly a really cool alternative because you get to play with the Harlequins, which are really cool, and you get to play with honestly a really awesome set of Druhkari units that actually become quite good with the stratagems and stuff like that. Because I think the main problem with Druhkari right now is they're boring, and I know some people are going to argue about that. But come on, in comparison to other armies and other detachments, they're really, really boring. And they just seem spammy a lot of the times, but again, in this particular attachment, they don't seem like that. They actually seem very engaging. So, yeah, anyway, this detachment looks just so fun. I can't wait to play it. I'm probably going to play some Tabletop Simulator with it before I start proxying it in real games. I've tried to get a couple games in this week with them, but, everyone's kind of busy for Christmas, so I haven't been able to, play with the guys I usually play with. So it's been a little bit slow in terms of, actually getting a real game in on the tabletop with this detachment. So, yeah, hoping to get some games on Tabletop Simulator. By the way, we do have a channel Discord, and we do, kind of have Tabletop Simulator people that, regularly play their Eldar and their Dark Eldar on Tabletop Simulator. If you do want to join and maybe to get a little bit better with your army, or you just want to talk about strategies and tactics with us, consider joining the channel Patreon. It's absolutely free if you want it to be. Of course, if you do want to donate a little bit, that would be much appreciated, but you don't have to get into the Discord, and I will leave the link for that in the description below. Also, I do have a channel store page where you can get Eldar inspired apparel and some Dark Eldar stuff. Not a lot, but some, which is pretty cool, and definitely some Harlequin stuff as well. We have things like Santa Death Jester and, Santa Eldrad in there. Of course, the Death Jester has several different shirts you can choose from. And then I also have an Amazon affiliate link, which you can get discounted Eldar minis from, and it does help the channel as well. Alright, everybody, that's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you guys are having fun with this detachment. Personally, I think it's the best in the game, bar none. I've given it some serious thought. I've looked at all the detachments so far, even the ones we thought were like really OP, like the AdMech detachment and the, Necron detachment. Yeah, those might be just competitively stronger overall, but I think in the hands of a skilled Dark Eldar player or somebody who really practices this detachment a lot, I think this is easily the best if used properly. Alright, everybody, that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.